Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity Radiant Light. It is Sunday, October 9th, 2022. And this morning, I'll be continuing with the third talk on the Prosperity series, Activating the Energy of Prosperity. I'm Reverend Cherie Ruffo. I'm so glad to have you here this morning. So you can kind of guess what we're going to be talking about today, but I just wanted to go back over the last couple weeks that we've had the Prosperity Talk. Each fall, we do a Prosperity series. And this year, I just selected some of the unity principles that we engage with and study in the Prosperity series. The first week we talked about prosperity is your inheritance, that you're actually meant to be prosperous, and but our understanding of that allows that for us to clear any blocks to it. Last week we talked about the language of oneness and how important it is. We have to not engage in a language of separation, because that also can we can have blocks to prosperity. And this week we're talking about activating the energy of prosperity. And I have to say, I grew up in a middle-class family, lower middle-class family, where money always seemed to be in short supply. We were never without food. We always had a home and the basic necessities. So I didn't go without, but we just didn't have a lot of extra funds to do things with. A meal out to dinner with my family meant going to Burger Chef. If everybody remembers Burger Chef, we'd have a hamburger, cheeseburger, share of fries there were four kids, and we'd always have just a cup of water. But we got to go out to dinner, so we were very blessed with that. Our vacations away, family vacations away, consisted of going camping, and we actually had toys, which was great. So. But if you've ever had a family of one boy and three girls, you can imagine the amount of Barbie dolls in that tent when we were camping. There was a lot. But the most important thing that my parents wanted to teach us about prosperity was to find security in life, to be secure, to have that, to know, because if we could find security, we'd be okay. Find a job that had security, provide pension later, and stay there, because back then, a lot of people stayed in one job their whole lives. So then when I got divorced and then started my business in 2006, they were so worried that not only had I lost my mind, but I had given up my security because I was starting a business. And that was really scary to them. And their concern was that I wouldn't have that security in the future. And as my mother said, I had just turned 40, so my mom said, she would read me the statistics. One day she told me, do you know that for a woman to get remarried after the age of 40 is harder to do than getting struck by lightning? So she was very concerned. And as we know, I've been married for 10 years, very happily married for 10 years. So that didn't come to pass. But I also know that, looking back, I started that business in 2006, and I had some fears around it because I had grown up with security. I'd been around it. But what I learned was by stepping out into my passion, and then later going into ministry in 2009, I chose to take that journey. Stepping into that passion is so prosperous because I get to do what I love, and I make far more than I did in the nonprofit world. I'm sure you that work in the nonprofit world can believe that, and that things worked out okay. And by trusting in this process, because that's really what started me on this journey for prosperity, seeking the definitions for it, really learning about it, came from those base fears that I had. But what constitutes prosperity? Is it money? Have you ever considered that money is a form of energy? It's the energy that powers our financial system in this culture. In every culture, we turn on the TV and we hear about the British pound, how it's doing, for the United Kingdom. We hear about all these things, and it's the energy that kind of fuels the economy. So, but we also still associate power with having money. People that have money tend to elevate themselves or be elevated because they have more money. And if we don't have money, how often do we feel disempowered? Or how often have we felt disempowered in the past? Because we may not have that in our bank account at this moment. We're going to talk about that this morning because it's a very important part of prosperity. But the first thing I did, as I like to do, is when I have to do talks, is look at the definitions of energy. And this is by Oxford Library. Energy is the strength and vitality required for sustained physical or mental activity. Changes in the level of vitamins can affect energy and well-being, is a good example of that. So we look at that, it's the strength and vitality it's required for sustained physical or mental activity. Nobody's really talking about money there. In The Revealing Word by Charles Fillmore, he has spiritual definitions of words. Energy is listed there too. And energy is listed as the power of God within us to accomplish strength or vigor of expression, internal or inherent power as of the mind, capacity of acting or producing an effect, power forcibly exerted, force or action, zeal in motion, the forerunner of every effect. So we're not seeing money there either, but money is the energy behind this. It's where we put our energy when we're thinking about prosperity. We look at its core. We're talking about money at its core is like it has a physical form. So we can hold a dollar, right? We can see it as we see these wonderful Benjamin Franklins here. I didn't take this picture in my house, but I would love to see that. But it's at its core, it tells us kind of where our energy is. So this energy that we're talking about with money is really all about frequency. Where's our frequency with money? When we look at the science of energy, we know that energy is not created or destroyed. It can never be. But energy can be transformed. So how does that relate to money? We can transform it how? By our thoughts and our feelings. So we're talking about us making the transformation and not the money. Prosperity, whatever you associate with prosperity. It might not just be money. It might be a home. It might be, think about the things that make you feel prosperous, the car you drive. So whatever that is, if you have negative feelings about it, it's an energy so we can transform that. Because we have to take a look at our relationship with who and what we are. What do we believe we are? So imagine that we're infinitely more than this body, which is what we teach at Unity and what we believe. We are more than what we see with our body here. Because we have our divinity, we have our body, we have our human experience. But I'm going to be talking about all of that next week as the last part of prosperity. But we are infinitely more. So what if this applies to more than people, like money? It does. Our relationship with money is deeply entangled with our belief system. Cultures, religion, relationships, everything that we have, our belief system impacts all of that, our health. So if we hold on to painful feelings about money or limiting beliefs about money or health or any of the things that love, then we block the very thing that we want more of. So we have to become very aware of where our beliefs are, the way that money flows into our lives, our true feelings about money. And we also know that money is a response to how worthy we believe we are. Where's your self-worth? And I'm not trying to talk about this morning to depress anybody. This is good news because we can transform all of what's happening in our lives with our consciousness. So the energy of money is about connections and purpose. It's our passion, our ideas, our opportunities. It's also about physical money. But physical money is only one component of this powerful force. So in reality, the energy of money wants to serve you and act in your highest and best good. And the only way it can do that is by our belief system, by our consciousness. So that gives us a clue, if we can look and see how we're doing in whatever our definition of prosperity is, it gives us a clue as to where we are. So to effectively work with this concept, we have to identify our feelings, our fears about money. Now, this journey isn't always easy, but it's so worth it. When we can really step into that, we can evaluate where we're at. The journey is worth it. So the first thing I want to do with that is when I say the word money, how does that make you feel? Does your heart start to race? Your palms maybe get a little sweaty? Or maybe you get excited about all the things you can do with money. Where are you with it? Are you worried about paying rent? Or are you thrilled because you always have enough and know you always will? So when you think of money in a positive way, you're claiming for yourself your best and highest good, your self-worth, your self-love. It helps you become the best Christ you can be. So in our culture, we're conditioned to believe that money is scarce or hard to come by. We know that because we turn on the news, if we turn on the news, and see whatever the money report is, what's happening in the stock market. And many of us believe we aren't worthy enough to even receive money or funds that we require. Because some belief systems help us to believe that if we want more money, we're greedy and not worthy of it. And the truth is, all of this is the farthest thing that can be from the truth. And we know when we see it, when it happens in mass culture, if people start they're not confident about where the economy is, where money is, we're going to see a recession, a depression, depending on where that is. So we know that by looking at where we are as a culture with money is where our mass consciousness is about it. And one of the things that we have in our culture here, and a lot of places do, but particularly in the United States, is we have intergenerational poor group of people. And I know because I was a social worker when I first got out of college, and I worked for the Health and Human Services Department in the state of California. And I could see where the culture was being established for people to come in and they would stay on welfare, and you'd see it from generation to generation. And my job was to work with the jobs program that they had back then and help people, give them education, training, childcare, whatever was blocking them to that having that great job, the career that they wanted. We were there to help them work through that with the belief that that will get them to the other side. But I had some people that were really resistant because now, and as I look back, I realized the belief system they had was the security was in receiving that monthly check. And back then it was a check. And so it was really hard I saw some really extreme things happen. In one case where a woman she couldn't have any more children. She was 31. But she got her 13-year-old daughter to get pregnant so then she could be the person to take care of the child when it was born and not have to participate. So then they could keep the checks going on. And I'm not putting her down, I never would. But that's how far these intergenerational beliefs can go. We believe that this is where we're born into and we need to stay. And then I had one other case that I just absolutely, the man, when I met him, he was living in a refrigerator box. And his girlfriend got pregnant and they had the baby. I did a lot of what I thought back then was social work with him. And I now recognize it as beliefs, changing beliefs. And at the end of the day, he got training and a job, and he kept in touch with me for years after that. He and his family went on, and he realized he was happy and how much more they could do with the new belief system that he got the job he always wanted. So we have to look into these deep cultural beliefs that we have. We have to look in where we came from, what were we raised with. And then the good news is, if it's not what we want, we can change it. So the first thing this week, figure out how you feel about money. How do you feel about it? How do you feel about having money in your life? Or prosperity, health, relationships, all things that we talk about. And the only way we can do that is not to turn on the TV to see what's happening in the world, is we have to tune in to ourselves. And to truly discern that, we're going to have to go back to our childhood. And what was the prosperity consciousness in your home? I grew up also in a faith system where we took a vow of poverty. And And every week I said I was not worthy. So I had to really go back and not point fingers at that faith system, but to really change some of the beliefs that I had. And I know that that started to change for me the day I walked into the doors, 1989 in Unity of Hawaii. And then it took me years and years till 2000, probably 9 or 10, when I finally was able to understand, really truly understand that it was my consciousness that would make the shift. So once I understood that my thoughts, feelings, beliefs could change my life's had a very different trajectory. Doesn't mean that I don't ever have problems. I certainly do, but they're different. And I know when I do see something, I have to question myself and really go into alignment and say, where am I out of alignment? Where's my thinking out of alignment on this? What can I do to shift this? And the thing that I love about it is what can I do? It's not about what's happening to me or what just happened to me in the world. We can't always control that, but we can control our response to it. How does this feel to you when I say this? This used to really annoy me, by the way. Your financial net worth mirrors your inner self. I used to have people say that to me and I would get really annoyed. I'm like, that's not true. Look what's happening out there, you know? And finally, as I started to understand that, and you would see people come through recessions, really bad recession that we had before, and do great. And one of my friends, her business never did better. People that came through, we had a pandemic that came through it. Some came through fine, some not. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying, what was our response to it? So we have to obey this law of universal transformation. The transformation begins with us. By releasing that heavy energy within us, we can release the blocks of prosperity that you may have, that I may have. This isn't an intellectual process. That's the difference. When I've seen a lot of prosperity videos and things like that, they talk about, the catalog of the universe and all that. They're not talking about this as not an intellectual process, but an inner process. It can only come from within. And it starts in our heart space. So when I began this process, I had to lose the fear and insecurity, the fears that I had over money. And I had a lot. So I realized that these feelings never served me well. And I had to transform them. I had to transform it into something. Because you could say, I'm going to lose this fear. But really, we're talking about a transformation, a transmutation. And I transformed them into gratitude. I'm grateful that I've always had a place to live. I'm grateful for the love in my life, for the people that are in my life. I'm grateful for so many things, whatever that is. And we're coming into Thanksgiving, where we're going to talk a lot about gratitude. And it's a time to really look at that and say, what can we transmute? The prosperity group that we had, the 4T group, is in a graduate group now. And they started, this month, we started doing shadow work, which is really uncovering, pulling back even more layers to see what don't we want to face about ourselves, or what are we hiding, to really get into our unconscious. We're going to be undertaking this energy and work that I'm talking about today in even greater depth. And we talked about it. I generally teach one class a year in between Joe's classes. And so this year, I'm not going to be doing an SCE course. I'm going to be doing a course that I actually took in ministerial school. It'll be in the winter, and it's going to be on shadow work. And we're going to be taking a really deep dive in that for 8 to 10 weeks. So it's a great way when we can do that, when we can look at ourselves without fear, without guilt or judgment, and start making that transformation. So your money story may be different than mine. You may have grown up in a place where your family was really comfortable with money, but maybe there were some fears surrounding, or maybe you grew up very wealthy and then lost that. So you may have fears. Whatever that story is, the bottom line to make the changes is the same. We can harness through transmuting these fears, these old ideas, we can harness love, relationships, the job you love, joy, happiness, and it will transform our lives. Because The money isn't the thing, it's the energy behind it that we want to transform. So with everything in your life, your frequency and your feelings matter most. And you might be tired of hearing me say that, but it's the truth. And this is how we make this shift. So if you don't have things you want in your life, if you're not seeing that in your life, maybe material things, a home, health, physical, relationships, work, whatever it is, then you know you have room for transformation in your life. And the good news is that we all aim for this joy and this happiness and love, and it doesn't have to rely on what's outside of us. I'm going to say that again. It doesn't rely on what's outside of us. And that's where people say miracles happen. But we know this is just part of the process. At the end of the day, it's simply a transformation in our consciousness, resulting from us understanding the energy about scarcity or prosperity consciousness. So we have a choice. You have a choice here. We can continue to hold on to old limiting beliefs about money and prosperity and love, relation, whatever it is. We can raise our consciousness and we can change it by doing that, because it's all about this energy and releasing our old beliefs. So I'd like you to focus on where your energy is this week. Really just take a look. Don't give yourself a hard time over it. And the other thing is take care of yourself like you would take care of a plant. Now, some of us may not take care of plants really well, so think about that before you do. And if you find you're not, take good care of your plants too. Place yourself in a healthy environment, hydrate often, remember your nutrients, get plenty of sunlight, remove those who eat you alive, right? We have some of those in our lives. Do what makes you bloom, what makes you feel good, but also be patient with yourself. Good things take time. And I love what Oprah Winfrey says about it. Energy is the essence of life. Every day you decide how you're going to use it by knowing what you want and what it takes to reach that goal, and by maintaining focus. Our focus is, where is our focus? That's the question we're asking. So I invite you to join me in this. I'm so glad to have each of you on this journey. And I look forward to pulling back even more of these layers. And of our last talk next week will be, are we fully divine? Are we fully human? That's going to be interesting. Thank you.